I changed clothes just to make fun of Drew. Last week he was wearing a sleeveless fucking
vest.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. Remind me of your name again?
Chuck.
Chuck. Corey. I don't know if I got it when you came in. Sorry.
Probably not.
Chuck.
I'm rude.
You snuck in behind me.
myself.
Well, it took two of us to not get each other's name, bro, so I am also rude.
Okay. Okay.
Got him.
Alright.
Oh, that is. I love it.
Sleeveless vest, the hat.
It's nice. I like the hat. Is that like a? Would you consider that a bowler hat?
Yeah, I think it's called a bowler.
I think you're loose on this one right here.
Okay. Brad, man.
I got a podcast set I haven't used yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us too.
Yeah, we have a little digital board and a bunch of sheer mics, and I haven't even. We've done one preview.
This motherfucker doesn't even have that.
Never.
Never got it.
Anything else? Do you guys leave them like this, or you tilt?
So the words on the mic. Do you see words on the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, so put that towards your face, and it should pick you up pretty
Is there
good.
a certain distance or anything I need to stay, or?
You want it like really halfway down your throat.
Melissa said that mine's too loud.
Yeah, I heard you want to be about like
too
this.
loud.
Maybe
I don't know,
she's
maybe-
tired of hearing you.
That could be possibly what it is.
Hopefully we're recording, so she heard that.
We are recording.
Good.
We are recording.
I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna fucking bitch at you. Brad, quit moving my shit. Move it back if you're gonna move it.
There was a bunch of stuff. These were all in weird places in here, and like it was.
I'll start locking him out of here. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit if it is his.
It's not his.
There we go.
73.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
You're not gonna wear your. Let's do a. Sorry, what was your
I don't
first
know
name
if I-
again?
Corey.
What are the
Corey,
headphones
thanks.
with the-
Yeah.
You're kind of loud. You don't have to be that close.
Oh, okay.
Just
good.
relax.
Just do like a.
Fire up the cigar.
Not from back here though, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's whatever.
I'll stay in.
Yeah, no, I mean you don't have to be super close, man, unless you're trying to like very wide it. Welcome to Unrolled, episode number 73. My name is Mike. Walter White wannabe over here is Chuck. Next to me is Drew and Corey. Say hi.
Hey,
That's not
how's
who
it
I
going?
expected to get, but
No, I don't know anybody
Charlie
else.
Chaplin.
I don't.
Dr. Carr?
Stuart. Oh, yeah, you're so Stuart. Actually, if that was leather, I'd been more Stuart. Yeah,
like
I
it.
need a leather vest.
I actually do like the hat.
No, I do like the hat.
Do you, Corey? Where's your cigar?
It's right here. It's not lit.
Not
Wait-
lit. All right.
Wait on a torch.
Right there.
Yep, there's one there. The one that looks like a Bluetooth speaker. There's one button on there. It's a triple flame.
Yeah,
Push.
push the front of it.
There you go. Don't be scared of the news. There you go. Corey's going to be smoking a. What'd you get him, Drew? A Sweet Jane?
Sweet Jane.
Sweet Jane, right on. Corey said he likes typically Connecticut wraps, something kind of mild. So Drew picked him out a Sweet Jane. It's got a little sweetness on the end. I grabbed a Revenant for the day. I haven't had one of these in a long time.
That's a beaut. I almost went with one of the MOBs,
It's a big cigar, is what it is.
but it's huge. Like it scared me. It scared me. It was impressive.
Well, I only use those in my new OnlyFans account.
I can see why.
Pictures of your feet.
Right. Something like that.
Cigars and feet.
Yeah, it's just me putting cigars in my mouth. Bro, $9.99 a month, and I'm already getting subscribers. So,
Are they all the Indian people?
yeah, they are. Dude, I've got so many rupees.
Slumdog Millionaire. Over
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would be a millionaire there,
Here.
but
Oh man.
damn, don't slam it,
I
bro.
know.
It's delicious.
Flip it
See?
with your thumb.
Sweet, good. And pairs well with that Weller.
Yes.
I put a little beam in my coffee. Thank you. Shout out to Rachel and company. You powered a couple people today.
This isn't
Yes.
gonna last. I'm cold already.
Oh, are you gonna cover up?
You got the heat?
Huh?
You got the heat on? It's always on here. I fucking turn it off every day. All right. Corey, introduce yourself. What do you do? What do you want people to know about you? Just to say hi?
Yeah, man. So first, thanks for your hospitality.
Oh,
I'm
dude.
excited to be here, smoke a stove,
Right.
have some good drink, hang
Yeah.
out with men. It's fun. My name's Corey. I'm a pastor in Collinsville. I work at a church called Heights Community that I started 10 years ago. Just 7 of us started it, and now it is what it is today.
Is it a mega church?
It's not a mega church. It'll never be a mega church. I have an incredible wife. Her name's Andrea. We have 4 kiddos, 2 biological kids, 1 foster adoptive kiddo, and then a current foster placement
Nice.
that we've had. And then we had a 5th even that has since had to move out. And if we get into that, I'll talk to you about it. But
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a messy situation.
Yeah,
but,
no, I bet,
so-
man. I did CASA for a minute, so
Okay.
that was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And so, so I'll say I'm the least likely dude to be a pastor.
Yeah.
It's not my track, not my childhood, not my upbringing in any way. And so,
Right?
the reality that I am where I'm at, man, is, I think, testimony just to God's faithfulness for me.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Did Drew tell you anything before he was like, "Hey, you should come on"?
No, he said, come smoke a cigar and drink bourbon at 9:45 in the morning. And I was like, that sounds like a
You
Tuesday.
should come on here and sit with 3 sinners and.
Yeah, well, we all are, so no difference.
There's that. There's that.
Everybody's the same.
Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No.
No.
I got nothing.
Yeah, you do. You have your notebook.
I wasn't jumping into the questions yet.
Well, I figured as much, but go ahead.
He sent me these questions.
Oh, you got
He
Prevy?
sent me these questions.
You got Prevy?
and he asked me. He asked me if I thought they were offensive.
You can't offend Chuck.
He asked me if I thought they were offensive.
You cannot.
Questions for you. He asked me if I thought they were
because
offensive.
we had a prior discussion.
We did.
to make sure that
We did.
because Corey is a fantastic human being, and I
Drew
didn't want him
said,
to feel like he was getting ambushed.
this guy's really, really nice. Don't pick on him too much.
don't be a dick to him.
Well, I did because he's my friend and he's a good guy,
Right,
and I was.
right.
I mean,
Oh,
of
right.
course, there's always a little ball busting, but it can become
Yeah.
Right.
it can become
right.
offensive if it's
Right. Don't
if
be
it's
offensive.
your lifestyle.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you know what I mean. So
Right.
there's always healthy discussions on anything. So.
Cool.
Right.
Hey, this is your guys' world, man. Y'all invited me into it.
Right.
So
God, this.
Oh, that's terrible. You get probably to sleep.
Right, bro. I'd have the next ship out.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I can endure a lot, man, for some Weller and a Stogie. So
Right, there
it's
you
okay.
go. There you go.
he paid. He paid for it. So, no,
I like
it's
it.
cool.
Cheap date. Cheaper than OnlyFans.
Yeah.
It's
That's
good.
right.
Didn't even cost $9.99.
Right.
Right.
Per month.
Mm-hmm.
You go ahead. I got a light for my question.
Drew's nervous.
What are
He's
you-
nervous
yeah,
about
yeah.
his questions.
I'm not nervous.
Are you
Nervous
sure?
About his questions.
No.
Do you have cufflinks on?
Do you
I do
want?
have
You want me to do it? I'll do it.
No, I got.
You want me to do the questions? I'll do the questions.
No, I'm not nervous. No, I was saying if Mike
Nervous.
had something to say. Or,
No, I already
Nervous.
forgot, bro, because I have a goldfish
He's
up there for a
nervous.
brain. So
You're
Be a goldfish.
You're a youth pastor or just a pastor?
I am a pastor. Yeah,
he's just a
So you're
pastor.
not a youth pastor. You're just a pastor.
I'm the pastor that started at the church. Yeah, and so we
So
don't
you-
use this language,
Okay,
but
okay,
for
okay.
folks in the Christian world, like they would use the word like lead pastor,
Right,
or like teaching
right.
pastor, or
You're the-
vision pastor.
You're the head
Right.
pastor.
But we don't use that language. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we just say
Until you've been
a
put out to
pastor.
pastor.
Right.
Huh?
You're the head pastor until you get put out to pasture.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good
Right.
You
play on
know,
words. Yeah.
what's funny is like being around farms so much that like every time I hear pasture, I'm like, bro, like yeah, there's so much cow shit out there.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah.
offense.
Well,
I
it's really
just-
good
yeah.
imagery of the church, as a matter of fact.
Right,
'cause
right,
There's
yeah.
kind of a lot of cow poo in that mug. If I'm honest.
So I heard. So I heard you say you didn't grow up in
Yeah.
religion.
No,
You didn't grow
not
up-
really. No.
Like your parents are probably Christians. And like
No, it's
most
exact-
people are.
It's the exact opposite, man. So
Really?
my story has actually been really huge for the whole establishment of our church. And
So no church, none.
The only time I went to church is when my mom would go to jail or be on a binge. And so I was raised by drug addicts. My dad died of a cocaine overdose when I was 7. My mom passed away 6 years ago, still with drugs in her system. She did meth to stay awake and muscle relaxers to go to sleep at night. And so she would leave us for weeks on end at a time. She would go to jail, And whenever those things would happen, then I would go stay with my grandparents. And they went to church some. They were older, World War II vet. My grandpa bled red, white, and blue. My grandmama, my G-mama, as I called her, had a crystal out with brownies on the table. Kind of your, if I may, stereotypical middle class, older family, Southern Illinois. And so when I was there, I was great. But when I lived at home, I started regularly smoking weed, which isn't a big deal now, but at the time it was. But in 5th grade, selling drugs in 5th grade. Drinking 8th grade. First time I got drunk was in a church parking lot.
Nice.
Waldo Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And then by freshman year,
shout out.
I had kind of done everything. By freshman year, man. So I started, I didn't sell a ton, but I'd go to parties and sell lines and make money and kind of live that lifestyle when I was with my folks, or my mom anyway. And then when I was with my grandparents, I was a little bit more straight edge with them because they had this thing called rules. And discipline. I had to be home, and and so that's why I say I'm the least likely, because I wasn't raised with silver spoon. My daddy and my granddaddy weren't pastors, and it was a mess, man.
My parents didn't go to church, but they were Christians. They believed in it.
Yeah, good.
And then I went the exact opposite. I'm an agnostic.
Okay, cool.
I won't say that I don't believe.
Yeah.
Because hell, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I should say I don't believe. But I won't say that it doesn't exist, because how would I know?
Yeah, sure.
It's ignorant for me to say that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's the smartest thing an agnostic can say. That's exactly what it means.
It's ignorant to say it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it goes both ways, Like for me to say, hey, I know everything, is also ignorant. 66 books written over 35 plus 100 years across multiple authors, cultures, generations, I can't sit here and go, I got it all figured out.
For multiple different reasons.
Yeah. And so.
Well, your childhood sounds like it should be a movie, my friend.
Yeah, well, it's been interesting, man, to use my story. So what I've learned, because I wasn't raised in the church, is that a lot of church folk act like they don't need Jesus.
Right.
And so I came on the scene, and I'm like, hey, this is all I have. I don't really have anything else. And that changed, the whole scope for the culture of our church body, and then the people that I'm around now, and so on and so forth. And so we call it story. That's why I say my I don't use the word testimony,
right?
Because I don't just start using the word story.
Yeah, testimony is real legal. We don't like that around.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so
a lot of church people think they are Jesus.
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly right.
So
yeah, man, there's some church. I mean, dude, it was church folk that killed Jesus. It wasn't the other folks.
Super judgmental.
Yeah.
I kind of like it when they judge me, because I can look and go, well, I'll save you a seat.
Yeah,
that's against the rules too, bud.
When they judge you, that's when you start quoting scripture and you say, "You who are without sin, throw the first stone, bro." Just like Jesus said.
That's against the rules too, buddy. So I guess I'll save you a seat.
Yeah. It turns out we ain't so different, aren't we?
Right.
And so, some of the most judgmental folks, man. There's a saying that's that, no one will love you like the church, but also no one will hurt you like the church. And I think that's very accurate in my own life.
Right.
So.
I actually have a very vulgar and offensive question I ask everybody when they do that to me. When I see them getting judgy and preachy, and I'm better than you, you're going to hell, and when I see them getting all Westboro Baptist.
Oh yeah.
I actually have a very offensive and vulgar question I like to ask them.
Yeah.
It shuts them right up. So.
What's that?
Oh, you don't want to hear it.
I do. What is that?
You do not want to hear it. No, we'll pass it.
Okay.
Trust me.
5 minutes in, and we're going to go there.
You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it.
All right. Fair.
Well, you want to tell them after the podcast?
Yeah, I'm going to.
No, I don't want to offend you, and you will be offended. Trust me.
Well, goodness.
So.
Goodness.
It's designed to cause offense, but because they're being offensive. You know what I mean? They're being jerk offs. Yeah. If you're going to be that way, well, then allow me.
You're matching it.
Allow me to be better than you at it, and shut you down now. Just close you out.
Yeah, get it.
Well, I can say honestly that Corey's not judgmental at all or that way. I mean, the first time I met him, we was at the little neighborhood block party we had, right? Came up, started talking to me and Melissa and Sailor and
Daisy Fresh t-shirt. Never forget.
Saw we doing the jiu-jitsu, and he's like, "I do jiu-jitsu," and I'm like, "Dude, I got mats in my garage. You want to roll?" Came over later that night and rolled, and been hanging out ever since. That was cool.
Yeah, man, it's over a year ago.
Is that how you pick up dudes?
That's how you pick up dudes.
Alright,
He was like, do you have pajamas? I was like, yeah. He's like, I wear pajamas. Do you want to roll around on the ground?
pajamas and choke each other.
I was like, yeah, that sounds great, man. Let's do it. Do you like to be choked? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's fun.
You want to get into the questions?
Yeah, fire away.
All right. So you said that the church was founded about, 10 years ago, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you say to your young ministry self if you were starting over again?
Yeah. I would say I got asked this question in front of a room of a bunch of people one day over in St. Louis a few years ago. And the first thing that came to mind was everything that you fear is going to happen. And so just be prepared. That's what I would tell myself. Because you start we're fairly entrepreneurial, maybe not as entrepreneurial as you guys that start all these different businesses and stuff, but we do get to start churches and do a lot of coaching, training, start nonprofits, things like that. And the reality is, when you start moving into starting something from nothing, there's a lot of fear that you think is going to happen. And it's a fear because there's two reasons there's a fear. There's a fear because it's a reality. There's also fear because there's a level of hope in you because you want to succeed, right? And so that hope can lead you to actually run away from the things that are fearful to do because you're fearful of failure, if that makes any sense. And so I think if I could look back at my younger self, I would just literally say, hey, man, everything you think is going to happen that sucks is going to happen. But just freaking headstrong, run head first into the storm.
Just know it doesn't matter.
Just let it get.
Just learn your lesson from it and keep moving.
Yeah, get it done.
Absolutely.
Just power through it.
Yeah, you can't avoid. People tell you, you start a cigar shop. I don't know what everyone does. You mentioned some real estate stuff earlier. People said, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that, because they experienced it.
Right.
And it's ignorant to go, I'm probably above that. It's smart to go, that's probably going to happen.
Right.
So when I start stuff, it's like I don't have anything else to lose, so it's only up from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's like you start from the ground. You start a church from the ground. If no one showed up, how many people showed up before you started? None, man. None. So I mean, when you get one person or two people, you've just had a 100, 200% increase, right. Bro. So right. That the growth part is my favorite part of the business because then it's when it's plateaus. So you're 10 years in, your congregation is X amount of people on a regular. So when that dips, that's when the real you're 16 years in. When you look at the past numbers and you go, what were we doing here?
Yeah.
That was great. That people, is my message different? Am I losing contact with my people? All these things are, going through your head, and that's to me is the real fear. Is once you're established and it dips. Yeah. Then what? Because when you're firing up, you got all the creativity and all the, you get 10 years in, 16 years in. That's whenever life goes, now I got to reinvent myself. You got to pivot every time. I got to change.
You can't just coast on your laurels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So that's the scariest part for me is not starting, man. That's the best part because you can't. You
can't really lose.
You really can't lose. For me, there was no fear in starting anything. Yeah. The fear comes whenever you're established and then people stop coming. For one reason or the other. So then it's like, how do we win them back? How do we get new? How do we keep growing?
Yeah. Are you willing to innovate?
Right. Are you willing to pivot? Are you willing to change?
Yeah.
Speaking of innovation, so with you, and I find unique about your church is that I've never seen it before growing up in the Catholic Church, not being baptized, but being that, is that, the priest was the end-all be-all of telling you what was this and that, right, which is bullshit. But you guys have missional communities, and I think that's a cool, maybe it's not, you didn't innovate that, maybe it's something that you've come across, but...
What's a missional community?
Yeah, what's that?
What is a missional community? That is the question. So, long story short, a lot of churches... to the doc's point here, they'll send a guy into a community, they want to start a church, okay, so they send a guy in, gather a bunch of people around him, they start a Sunday service, and then they start small groups that meet in homes. We did that the opposite. And so we were like, we don't want to be, Sunday's important, and I believe it's biblical and good and right. I don't want to downplay that, so don't hear me say something I'm not, perhaps. But we were like, well, what are we actually doing throughout the week? Are we actually being family throughout the week? I grew up in a real jacked up family, and the Bible talks about us being family. Are we actually trying to model
Right,
good,
right.
healthy family. Not that we don't argue and fight and stuff like that. I'm just saying,
Right.
what does it look like to be family? What does it look like to love your neighbor as yourself? And then what does it look like to actually like live on mission? You know, to sit here with guys that don't think the same as you, have a different worldview than you, and can hear you out and go, okay, yeah, cool, right, that's great. So that's a missional community. Is like, we don't want to just get you to Sunday. I want to sit down with you in the living room. Like, I want to have a meal. I want to do jiu-jitsu with you. I want to hang out with you. And so our whole concept is like, not so much get you to Sunday, but like, let's just be ourselves and who we are based off who Jesus is, and be authentic to that, whether someone agrees or not. You don't have to be a dick about it, but just be yourself. And if someone likes you, great. And if they don't, then we just met anyway. You know what I mean? It's not gonna ruin anything for anybody in the room. So that's what a missional community is. It's very strategic. It's that we talk about that innovation. It's always innovating. So like, mission is like, you're always re-strategizing. You're always rethinking how does this vision work. You're always rethinking. Everything is an opportunity, and that comes from an entrepreneurial background and upbringing. Anyways, being raised by drug addicts. Dude,
if you sell dope, you can start any business.
Yeah, man. I mean, think about how creative you have to be to not get caught.
Right.
You know, we talked about the wettest,
right?
The wettest county.
Right.
They weren't super creative.
Right. Right. They got busted all the time.
They were.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they sucked.
And so that's what a missional community is. So we started with homes, and then we added a Sunday later, and that set the DNA for who we were. And so now we have a bunch of people on a Sunday, and that's the hardest part for me, if I'm honest, because we do get a bunch of these Christians that show up, to your point earlier, man, and they show up and they see this beautiful church, and they see this really great Sunday, and then they just kind of want to show up and shut down. And you're like, no, like, this is a place where you roll your sleeves up and get to work. This is not the end goal. This is just a byproduct of who we are. Everything else is like, we want to be out in the streets getting stuff done. And so that's kind of what a missional community, we call them MCs for short.
Right.
That's the way I think about it anyway. Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's what we've led people to.
Yeah, that's something brand new that I've never heard before.
Yeah, it turns out it's in the Bible, though.
Is it?
Yeah, the American church ain't quite there, bro.
Well, they used to do missional communities back in like the 1800s, and
Okay.
so forth like that. So if you ever watch, I'm going to name one. It's probably a bad example, but There Will Be Blood. Have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
So the son,
Oh,
the preacher,
Yeah,
that was a missional. He was doing missional community. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you think about.
so they used to do it, but the way of the church has went to the way of the money, and so
Yeah.
you get less community and more come in and fill this plate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly accurate, man.
So that's a question I had later, but then it segues into that question. I
Right.
skip to that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the later questions was, at what size of your church do you feel like you lose personal or spiritual connection with the church, and it becomes more of a business, like a Joel Osteen type situation?
Yeah. Well, that dude.
Joel Osteen's a complete and total piece of shit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a special place in hell for that man.
So, oh yeah,
100%.
definitely. Closed his doors for hurricane victims.
Yeah.
His own community closed his doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck
Yeah.
that
There's
guy.
a special place for that man. Yeah.
And
And
unfortunately, that's a lot. That's like way more than there are you, for example. I don't know you that well, but
that's true.
But
Yeah.
based on what you've said so far, and Drew likes you, so you got to be a good dude.
Yeah, there are
There's
a lot.
way more of them than there are you.
So here's the rule of thumb there. If for the most part, there's about 2 outliers for what I'm about to say. If there's a pastor with their face on a book, you don't follow that pastor.
Fair.
That's the way it goes.
Fair.
There's
I
a
like
few
that.
outliers now. There's a few. Okay. There's
Fair.
like 2, and that's it. And so
Well, there's
for
always
the,
an exception.
for the most part, you
Always.
just don't follow that guy or gal in many
Right.
cases. You know?
Right.
Yeah, man. So, and that's a good question, because for me, it comes down like to, at what point is our vision being sacrificed that we feel like God gave us, because there's too many people. And so, like for us, I'll share this story, and then hopefully it'll answer your question. Whenever we launched, we were doing preview services, like you do a soft open for an organization. We did something called preview services. And it went, 60 people, 80 people, 100 people, 120 people. We launched on Easter, and 12 people showed up. And so 12 people showed up on a Sunday, which was asinine for an Easter. That's like Super Bowl for church, right? We had 12 people. We just had 100, and now we have 12. And I got up to teach that week, and I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, I was sad, I was all these things, because some of your identity is looped in. Are people coming? Are the 2 or 3 still there? Are people following? Do people like my business? So I'm just being real about that. And I got up and I just felt, I'm a Christian, so I do believe in someone called the Holy Spirit. And I feel like God very simply said, like, if it were just me and you, would the gospel be enough? Like, would I be enough for you? Stick to the gospel and stick to the vision I gave you. And in that moment, I realized we had 12 people on a Sunday, but we had 40 people that were meeting in homes, and 30 of them thought similar to us, and 10 of them did not. So 10 people helped me start our church that were not Christians, that they believed in the mission and what God had called us to. And so I've tried to cling to that experience to answer your question. I've tried to cling to that. Like, do I care more about how many people are showing up on a Sunday, or do I care more about how many people are gathering together throughout the week to get stuff done, to just straight freaking get it done? And so, like, we've always had more people meeting in homes. This is also different. We've always had more people meeting in homes than we have meeting on a Sunday. So before when I met you, we had 250 people that went to our church, but we had over 300 that were meeting in homes throughout the week and meeting in other places throughout the week, that's our vision. So that's healthy. This is the first time now that we have more people on a Sunday than we have meeting throughout homes throughout the week. So for me, I'm like, that ain't the vision. That's not what God called us to do. And so to get to the point, on Easter, for example, they're all like, are you going to do 3 services? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Are you going to do this? And I said, no, we're not going to do 3 services. We're going to do 2 services like we always do. We don't change anything we do on Easter. It looks the exact same on Easter Sunday as it does any other week at our church. And part of that strategy is to continue. This is answering your question. Part of that strategy isn't that I don't want people to church. It's not that I don't want to have more people. It's that I care more about the vision that I think God gave me 13 years ago total than I care about how many people are showing up on a Sunday. And the moment that flips for you, when you start performing for people, then you're no longer like doing the job that God has called you to do. And that's when like that impersonability, that being impersonal and in business and all that stuff comes into play. For me, from my perspective anyway. And so I fight hard against that. And I get pushback from people. And I'm like, no, like that just ain't what we do, bro. That's not who we are. There's 40 churches in Collinsville. Go to a different church if you don't like the vision.
Well, and I on the Easter service, I was gonna say that I like when you were speaking, I really respected it because you said that you weren't going to change.
Flip it up.
The path or message that you were preaching on to fit the Easter Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And so that's
worth noting.
That's really cool because you kept on, working on the book you were working on and didn't necessarily just talk about Resurrection Day. So that was really
that's
cool.
Great. I'm glad you were there to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't change the series and stuff like that for Easter.
Well, I have another question that's going to defer from Drew's questions, but you're talking about getting up and reading the message. So I've got another question that I ask whenever because I'm perfectly capable of having a respectable conversation with a pastor, despite the fact that I don't believe.
Yeah.
I used to sit and discuss with I had a Jehovah's Witness come by one time.
Yeah.
And I was busy, so the first time I was kind of being an asshole, but the more I talked to the guy, the more I liked the guy. Right. Yeah. So we actually started having a conversation, and he would come around and I'd sit and talk with him.
Yeah.
He'd sit and talk with me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I think the church moved him because
and he couldn't convert you.
right. Because but the question I like to ask is at what point does it quit? Are you up reading the book, or you're up telling people?
Preaching a sermon. Yeah.
So at what point does it not become? Because once you start explaining it, that is that's your vision of what is being said in the book.
Yeah.
So at what point do you feel that it's no longer the Word of God?
Yeah. So what we try to do. That's a great question, man. Because there's a lot of folks that read into it.
The words are the words. I mean, I've read the book. Yeah. So if I've read the book, therefore I've read the Word of God. You tell me what the book means. And that's I've always said this too. Well, it's supposed to be a personal relationship. Mm-hmm. So what I get from the book isn't going to be what you get from the book. What you get from the book is going to be your personal relationship with the Word of God.
Yeah.
And therefore different than my personal relationship with the Word of God. So at some point you have to be translated into the Word of you and no longer the Word of God.
Yeah, and that's the fear, man.
How do you avoid that?
Yeah, so I don't want to bore you with how I try to do that, but there's 2 words that we talk about in my world, and there's an eisegetical approach to reading Scripture and an exegetical approach to reading Scripture. And so an eisegetical is when you're reading into something and you're only looking for application. What does this mean for me? What does this mean for me? Exegetical is you're trying to get the text to exit the book, if you think about it like that. You want it to come out at you. And so I spent a lot of time really trying to like figure out the context, the culture, and the audience of the text for that time. And so a great deal of my time is, as the teaching pastor at our church, is really looking at like some of the original language, trying to do a great deal of research. And so like for the book of Hebrews, which is what the doc was there for, going through the book of Hebrews, you know, I started off with 4 commentaries that I'm reading that are about those things specifically. And I'm just trying to pull out, before I ever ask, what does this mean for me? I'm saying what's happening in the original context and the audience of that book first. And so, for example, like what we're in the book of Hebrews, and so they were being told, hey, you can believe in Jesus as your Savior, your personal Savior, just like the language, you know, it's a personal relationship. You can believe in Jesus as a personal Savior, but you can't believe in him as your Lord, because there was a Caesar and there was a political elite and there's all this other stuff going on. And so I want to like set in that, like why were they being told that, and what was happening to those Christians, and like they're being pulled out of their homes and like set inside of brass bulls and boiled alive, so that their screams would be heard coming out of the bull, you know, like it was a treacherous time to be a Christian. Like they're having stakes rammed through their butts out of their mouths and lit on fire to light Roman roads during that time. So like that's what I'm interested in.
You're talking about the what was it time called? I forget.
I don't know. It's a Greco-Roman era. That's the only thing that comes to mind when you ask that question.
When they attacked them, when they were, because it was the Catholics, the Catholicism part of the...
Yeah, that's the Crusades. That's not yet. This is still... This is even before that, yeah. But the Crusades were part of that. They were terrible Christians.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Maybe
that's a terrible time for Christianity, for sure, bro, yeah. But the point is that...
No, I know what they called it something. I can't remember what they called it.
I don't remember, yeah.
They called that era something.
I don't know. It's okay. One of the things Christians have a hard time with, too, is saying, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. And so... That's what I want to do, and because of that fear, man, if I'm honest. Like, I don't want to get up like, oh, this is just Corey's understanding and opinion. So what I try to do is look at the context and say, what was happening? And then say, okay, now how does that translate to 21st century white, for the most part in my church, white, middle class, middle upper class, America? What's the warnings here?
But once you start, and that's part of the problem I always have with the church, is once you start explaining to me what that book says, it's the word of you. It's not the word of God, it's the word of you.
Yeah, some of it's black and white though. So
no, some of it is black and white,
yeah.
Right? Some of it is black and white, some of it's easier.
But doesn't some of it involve like context?
But
like,
not all the lessons, not all the, and some of it you have to translate because you know what I mean. You got to make it more modern place. You can't, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
I would tell you
what makes you any better. What I'm saying is what would make somebody who's doing that and not even trying to say, well, what was going on back then, but this is what I believe it says.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What makes them any better than a guy like David Koresh?
Yeah, so I would say...
Because that's all he was doing as well.
Does it land you in the supremacy of who Jesus is or not? Like, what are they pushing? You know, what are they selling to you? Because if I'm up preaching and I'm like just selling myself and I'm this great pastor and I'm the chief shepherd and I'm all these things and I just make you feel awesome about yourself and you can go conquer the world, all I've done is led you to be a functional Buddhist in that moment.
Well, aren't you supposed to be humble?
So I'm saying
that the whole thing.
That doesn't work. Yeah, so it doesn't work, right? And so, but there's a lot of pastors, to your point about megachurch, right, that are not humble. They're the opposite of that. They're spending $60,000 on a gallon, on gas.
Well, it's a pastor somewhere. It's a pastor that turned me off of.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, I imagine a pastor completely. Of the church. Yeah. And
then I read the book Looking for Answers, and I'm going to tell you, if you actually sit and read the book Looking for Answers, you're not going to find them. They're not there. There's just more questions.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets answered, but 13 years, 15 hours a week or so I've studied. And I still left with more questions. Right. And that's where, the difference is, the only difference between us in that regard is that I, at the end of the day, would say I have faith in Jesus. Right. And you don't. Yeah. And that's it. Right. And we can still smoke stove and drink whiskey. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's where those religious Christians get that all jacked up, man. Right. Because they want to think, well, I'm better than you. Like, well, what about the humility that you mentioned? Yeah. What about the humility? So.
I'm going to get an ice stand, and you're going to be there anyway, so maybe.
What's up?
To that point, does everyone... this question is multiple parts, but do you feel like everyone deserves forgiveness? Do you feel like
He's a Christian, of course he does.
can people be saved without Christ or Christianity?
Yeah.
And can other religions or spiritual pursuits be as good for other people as Christianity is for you?
Yeah. So those are all hard questions that don't get answered in an hour.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Well, I can answer them.
You can answer them. Yeah.
I can answer them.
You can answer them for somebody else.
Of course he can't. Well, not for him, but of course he believes everybody can be saved. He's a Christian. He's a preacher. You kind of have to believe that, right?
I have a hope. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of has to believe that.
Will they be?
And all religions are based off one thing anyway. So there's just people have taken it apart and traveled here and traveled there and traveled here and traveled there with it. So if it's all based off one thing, then they all got to be able to perform the same thing as the one. So I mean,
yeah, I would differ on that just because Christianity is the only religion that had God die for humanity. And so I was not a Christian for longer than I have been a Christian. And I've searched a lot of different things. And so for me, personal opinion, for me personally, like what keeps me like in the Christian thought and worldview is that it's the only religion where God came down. And so everything else says like, hey, there's an issue. At the end of the day, there's an issue. Humanity is an issue. Now look at humanity, look at yourself, and try to fix that issue. But Christianity was the only one that said, hey, there's an issue. By the way, humanity is that issue, which we can look at the world and go, yeah, we're pretty freaking jacked up. It's a pretty freaking messy place right now.
Humans are terrible creatures.
Yeah, and then instead of saying, hey, look to the problem to solve the problem, he said, hey, I'm going to send my son to die for you. And in doing so, the world is still going to be a total mess. But there's at least someone we can put some hope in to go, hey, like, that's not just like a good way to live life, but like he does provide an opportunity for forgiveness to come. So like God's wrath and anger doesn't just stop. Like it gets taken out on his son. And no one else does. Even Jordan Peterson would say like that is the most beautiful redemptive narrative that has ever been written. And like there's you watch The Dark Knight, you watch all these movies, like everything is telling that story of like there's an issue, humanity is that issue. There has to be someone from outside of that system to come into that system and fix it. And in any other episode in our life, that's exactly what we would do. If there's a hole in the wall, I don't go over to the hole and go, there's a problem, there's a hole. Now let me use the hole to fix the hole that's in the wall. You go, no, I got to go outside of the system. We got to go to Home Depot, we got to get some stuff, we got to come back and fix the issue. And so we have to go to a different source. And so for me personally, I'm not putting this on anyone else, but for me personally, as I did have a crazy life, upbringing, ton of questions. I was like, I cannot save myself. Like I've tried to save myself through drugs. I've tried to save myself through alcohol. I've tried to save myself through religion. I've tried to save myself through chicks. I've tried to save myself. And like at the end of the day, I was left empty. And so there was only one that I ever looked at and was like, dang, dude, you actually come into my mess alongside me, experience what I have experienced. It says, suffer as I have suffered, tempted as I have tempted, as a God, by the way. And then you let the very people you come to save kill you? That's a freaking scandal, dude. And like no one else has that. And so for me personally, I'm like, damn, that's worth following. Like that's a dude I would follow. You know what I'm saying? If I have a boss, like, well, you're the issue, you need to fix the issue. That ain't helpful. But he's like, hey, let me come alongside you. Let me walk with you, entrepreneurially. Let me walk with you. Let me, no matter, not only that, but I'm going to take the failures for you so that you can be successful. Like that's crazy. And so for me personally, man, I'm like, I follow that dude.
I like it. Let's see. You obviously have spiritual wellness in your life. What do you do to try to improve and maintain other dimensions of wellness in your life?
Yeah.
Which are physical, emotional, intellectual, social.
A lot. A lot, man. Sorry if that's loud when I say it like that. Man, there's a lot of pressure in to be, in the role that I'm in. I have to deal with a lot of. One of the questions, have you ever considered quitting? We'll talk about that too. For the first time that happened last year. But so a lot. So, CrossFit, HIIT workouts, I have to exert energy, otherwise I will like straight lose my mind. And so there's a saying, all exertion and no rest leads to injury, but all rest and no exertion leads to apathy. And so I don't want to be apathetic, but I also don't want to be injured. So there's this tension that I have to walk, right? So I do HIIT workouts, do jiu-jitsu with you at times and with other guys and gals, of course. So I want to be physically fit, 4 to 6 days a week. I'm doing something that exerts energy for at least an hour just to kind of get my mind to slow down a little bit. Try to watch diet. I'm not like a crazy diet by any means. I just do macros and try to eat normal, eat healthy. Try to read fairly widely, listen to podcasts a little bit. I stopped listening to things for about 4 years because I wanted to find my own voice when it comes to being a communicator. I wanted people to hear from me. Not from someone living in New Jersey or New York or California. So I quit listening to people for a long time. Do a lot of journaling as well. So I do something called Take 5 almost every day. I brought my journal with me today just in case I needed it while I was here, where I just do 5-minute timer, and it says, how'd you feel yesterday? Why'd you feel that way? How do you feel right now? And I set a timer so that my mind doesn't have to wonder when's 5 minutes going to be up. Listen to a lot of brown noise whenever I sleep. I go to counseling regularly. I got a counselor that's a freaking sniper. That dude is not like, hey, tell me how you feel. He's like, pardon my language here. I don't know if you hear. You guys don't care. He's like, that's because you're a dick. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah, you're right. I am being a dick. And so that's how he talks to me. I love him. It's the one place in my life besides with my wife where like I can just show up and be whoever I freaking need to be in that moment. I don't have to put on a face. I don't have to look like I'm put together in front of a bunch of people. I can just be who I am. And so I make a lot of effort, man, for like just good, genuine, quality time. And then time with my family, bro. Like, there's no substitute for just genuine time with my family that is restful and good. I get 1 day off a week. It's Friday. And I don't do anything that has to do with, let's say, Christianity, as a whole for me, like vocationally and stuff like that at all. I tell them if she's not pregnant and it's not on fire, don't freaking call me on a Friday. And so I don't want to know. I don't want to know about it. And they don't. They respect that. We have 9 staff, over 600 people that go to our church. No one bothers me on Fridays. But I'll bang, dude, like all day with you. We'll go 6 a.m. to 12 o'clock at night if we have to get a job done. But Friday's my day with my family, so don't mess with it. And so a lot. I try to do a lot, man, for mental health and spiritual health, physical health. It all goes together.
Yeah.
Even like to your point, I do think Jesus is the only way. But also like there is like we call common grace, and like there's some really well-meaning great Buddhists, Muslims, people that believe in things that are different than me, and that stuff it helps their mind, like it's restful. Yoga is great for you. I mean, I don't think it leads very far once it becomes a spirituality, but like transcendental meditation, taking time to breathe, like there's no substitute for fresh air. And so while I don't agree with them spiritually, right, there's also like a reality where as a decent human being, I can see how that benefits you. Sitting by yourself and smoking a cigar is restful and good for your soul. Like that's it. We call that a means of grace or a common grace, And so,
and I don't, Chuck could probably speak to it more because I know a little bit, but would you say that like there's sects of Christianity though who vary on who can be saved in itself?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So like my question to you is,
and what's weird is it's all the same. It's just that what happens is they went through the book and they went, well, I don't like that. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, in some ways.
So I'm gonna go over here with this. And then we're not going to teach that part because I don't agree with that.
Who did that? One of the founding fathers, presidents, right? Made his own Bible, just ripped stuff out. He didn't.
Well, now the presidents. First of all, this was never meant to be a Christian nation. Never. This nation was founded on the freedom of religion, and it was founded by a bunch of Luciferians. And that's proven fact that they were Luciferians. It's proven.
One of them
well
was
documented. It's well documented that they were Luciferians.
Yeah.
That they were all in they Benjamin Franklin, Andrew Jackson, Alexander Hamilton, Hancock.
I think it was Franklin that made his own Bible, right? Tore out pages.
Probably. Benjamin Franklin. Yeah,
but
probably.
to the point, we don't like that, so we just tear it out. And that happens in churches a lot, too.
Right, probably. But they were well-known Luciferians. Now, when you say Luciferians, I don't mean Satanists, because that's hokey nonsense, if you want my opinion.
Well, yeah. Should be your opinion now. Yeah,
right. There's no such thing as a Satanist. Satanist is just a Christian that worships the other deity in the book.
Yeah.
So because, and you can't tell me he's not a deity.
Some.
I'm not going to say yours because I don't know what you preach.
Sure.
But some of these sects teach that you're supposed to fear him and that he has all this power and then that makes him a deity.
Yeah.
And so it's, and I.
Well, the Bible calls him a deity, a principality of this world, Yeah. principality.
I used that to make Satanists mad, actually, because I'm like, you're just a Christian, dude. You're just a Christian.
Yeah.
You're worshiping a deity from that religion that makes you part of that religion. You're not something separate. You're just worshiping the other
You're
guy.
definitely not following Christ in that.
Yeah, you're worshiping the other guy. That's all. That's all it is. So, so the Satanic Church is it's a falsity anyway. It's a that's not what I want. The word I want to use. It's a
Who's the guy? Anton LaVey? Is that who it is?
Anton LaVey. And Anton LaVey will tell you exactly what he was. He tells you what he was in his own book. Mm-hmm. Anton LaVey was a plagiarist. And he was he calls them, in his book, he calls them psychic vampires, and that's what he was, a psychic vampire. He fed off people. He manipulated people so he could feed off of them.
I like that terminology.
And that's exactly what he did. And he tells you that in the book. I've read his book. I've read the Satanic Bible written by Anton LaVey. He tells you that in his own book. He tells you what he is, and he doesn't come out and say that that's what he is.
Yeah.
But when he tells you what it is, and then you look at what he did, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
So
you can't get mad at him about it. That's
right. Well, he was a plagiarist. You can be mad at him because he was a plagiarist. He had no original ideas.
Yeah.
So he stole a lot from Crowley, whatever, however you pronounce his name, Alexander Crowley.
Crowley was way cooler in Supernatural.
Well, I mean, I bet he would disagree with that.
He might have been. I do believe in demons, so maybe he was supernatural. Who knows?
Well, they say he conjured some, so they say that's what took his life. So
yeah.
The father of modern day rocketry was right there with him. So Parsons, Jack Parsons,
like real rockets, like space rockets. I thought that was a Nazi dude. Who did that?
Elon.
So the Nazis,
Elon.
the Nazis perfected it, but modern day rocketry was Jack Parsons.
I'm gonna tell you what, if Elon Musk turns out to be the Antichrist, I'm gonna be screwed on that one, bro.
Right.
I'm gonna be like, dang, I'd follow that dude. All right, man, where are we going? Where's Mecca?
I'm waiting for him to become a super criminal.
Yeah, a super villain.
Yeah, super.
It's gotta
villain.
be a super.
Yeah.
Villain.
I love that man.
Yeah,
like Mega Mind.
I think he's the most fit to be the Antichrist. You guys want to talk about that sometime?
Right.
I've thought about it a lot. Yeah, because like the libs can't get mad at him because he's green. The conservatives can't get mad at him because he's conservative. He's like the perfect little freaking ninja.
He'll be the super villain.
He's a chameleon.
He's a chameleon, man. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So
sort of green. Sort of green.
Yeah. Depending on how far you want to run out the slave trade, that makes all that possible.
Eventually.
So you believe that you believe that the Antichrist is on Earth or will be on Earth at some point?
Man.
Or
yeah, I don't. So the fancy word for that is like eschatology, right? The study of eschatology. I have not fully settled in my eschatological framework or worldview yet, if I'm honest with you. I took our folks through the Book of Revelation, and I didn't look at it like all the crazy signs and like locusts were Apache helicopters, and I didn't do all that. We just looked at the context of what was happening during that time, the persecution, the abuse that was happening, and what imagery would have made sense
somebody
for
wrote
their time.
that shit down, and then everybody's going, "It's coming."
Yeah.
No, it just happened.
It's a revelation of a revelation, though, you know. And so you can't look at it and go, "This is 100% what this means," because that's not what John says in that book. He never alludes to that. And people, you know, again, to your point, man, like people made millions off of speculation and billions,
manipulation, speculation, manipulation.
Because
they weren't speculating, they were manipulating.
They were manipulating. And what was that word you used? The vampire what?
Psychic vampire.
Psychic vampires, man, just sucking the life out of people and using them. You know.
I feel that's going to be in the sermon.
It is going to be. It's going to be.
Have you ever seen the show What We Do at Night?
Oh, that sounds super familiar.
It's a bunch of vampires. It's comedy. It's a bunch of vampires. It's great. But there's a psychic vampire on there too, and I identify with him because he realizes that he can suck energy through the internet by being a troll, and I'm like, damn it.
That's funny. Yeah. So sorry, I don't even remember what we're talking about.
Right. That was good.
It's the esoteric, the worldview. But you believe Jesus will come back.
Oh, yeah, I do believe.
How do you know he hasn't?
Because he says he's going to split the skies, man, and I haven't seen that happen yet. I thought about that during Revelation. Like, we all knew when that lunar eclipse happened.
How do you know it's not like a Family Guy situation. where he come back and everybody was like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, I just think we'll know.
And now he's on afternoon television telling people they're not the Father.
I think we'll know.
Like South Park.
He does say there will be many who come in my name, and I think I wish I would have researched a little bit. We didn't know we were getting in this part, but just a few months ago there was someone in Israel proclaiming to be the Messiah. You know, like
there's always
2 months ago or whatever, and it actually made news.
There's always someone crazy or out of their mind that thinks they're the Messiah. Or we know, me and Mike know a dude personally that thought he was the Messiah.
Actually,
I went to high school with him.
It all made sense too.
I went to high school with him. Yeah, and he was really, if you were stoned, he was really, really convincing. Really convincing. He'd have you in a complete screwed up conundrum.
Yeah. Was he out like standing on water puddles? Like, told you so.
No, but he would come up to your car. And he would appear out of nowhere too. That's the craziest thing.
No, this is all true.
Yeah, 100%. He would come up to your car and he would preach to you, and he would tell you how he was Jesus Christ, and he would tell you all these ways that how he knows that he's Jesus Christ, and blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah.
And then he would preach you, and he'd have you thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
And then he'd look at you and go, "Can I get one of them pinch hits?" And now you're thinking because
Messiah gets down. Yeah.
You're like, this is a sin.
Is it though?
Is this a test? Do I give him a pinch hit and go, or am I going to hell? Because I'm not going to give him a pinch hit. Is it?
Yeah, you should share.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So he'd have you completely screwed up in your head for a couple of seconds if you were high.
And he went on mission trips when I got to know him.
Yeah, he did.
He was driving around hitting up the convenience stores. He was trying to turn all the ISIS to Baptists. So
I don't know which is better in that regard.
Yeah, well, it just had a good ring to it. So he would basically stand in a convenience store owned by anybody Brown.
Gosh.
And then would
he tried to rid the area of drug dealers by buying drugs and punching them when they showed up.
Yep, and then but when he was
doing the drugs.
Gosh. Yeah, when he did the ISIS to Baptists, he would then destroy their convenience store until they said "I love Jesus Christ," and then he would leave and get arrested.
That's effective. Yeah.
So. I mean, in his head, he got people to say, "I love Jesus Christ," and then he would leave.
Gosh, yeah.
Conversion therapy is kind of messed up, man.
I mean, I don't want to give you. You know, this is a real think tank here in this room.
Yeah,
so
I feel
mean,
like maybe I could this will work.
Yeah. So I mean,
there's a couple convenience stores in Collinsville that maybe I should just go stand in there.
No. You start with like a bag of wrap snacks, and you just throw them on the ground, right? And then you're like, "Do you love Jesus Christ yet?" And you just keep going until you get to the Crown XO, and you throw that down. Then they start saying, "I love Jesus Christ,"
and then you apologize.
Yeah, then you say you're sorry as you're getting carried away in cuffs.
Yeah,
right. You repent.
So once liquid hits the ground, they're ready.
Yeah. So
they're ready to convert.
But there's either people that think that way because they're crazy, or think that way. But how do you know? How do you know?
Right. Like.
Well, yeah. That's it.
So like I tell people all the time, how do you know David Koresh wasn't Jesus? How do you know? Yeah. I mean, he spoke the word of God. I mean, how do you know? You can't actually know.
Can you remember who David Koresh was again? I know.
Waco,
okay.
That's how you know, because they were banging 14-year-old, 12-year-old little girls.
Back in the day, though.
What? You know, there hasn't been a single one that survived that says that that's true.
Oh, no.
There hasn't been a single survivor that has come out and said, that's true.
So that was a government.
There'd have to be at least one. And that's the other thing. Jesus was killed by his own people, right?
Yeah.
Koresh was killed by his own people. The ATF come in and burnt them all alive.
Yeah.
Didn't he say he had a vision that was going to happen? Like exactly how it played out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He wrote it down before, whatever.
Well, but you could just say that he was smart enough to know that collecting all these weapons was going to bring the ATF in. And we're not going to come outside, so they're obviously going to shoot at us.
Yeah.
He could have just said that he was smart enough to know that what he was doing was going to lead to that.
Lead to death.
But,
it turns out.
But... And I'm not saying David Koresh was. I'm just saying, how would you know? How would you...
Well, it says he's coming back for good, and that cat's dead. So
there's that.
There's one way.
Well,
have you heard about...
I mean, maybe he's just taking a little longer this time.
About Project Bluebeam?
What's that? Tell me about it.
Oh, boy.
There's so much in Project Bluebeam. What do you... I'm
talking about at the end of it, when they put all the deities in the sky, combine them all together into the one...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That's another topic.
You need to, stay off the Netflix or something, bro.
It's not Netflix. Yeah, it's conspiracy.
So do you believe because I always like this one. This is fun. Do you believe that when he comes back, he's going to take a certain amount of people? He's going to take these
the elect, the 144,000 elect.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And ascend to heaven and leave everybody else here in this total chaotic and what I like. He's basically, I think in Revelations, I don't know how it puts it, but some people would say that he's basically going to turn this over to, all right, Satan, you can have your, and then Satan's going to come up here and be like, free for all.
Yeah. So again, like, there's 16 weeks you could do on that alone, that one question, right?
Right.
You know, and so now I think, like, right now, I think we're in the time of tribulation. Personally, I think it's right now. I think it started in 70 AD at the fall of the Jerusalem temple, when the Romans came in and started massacring all the Jews. And he said, "I'll tell you what, I'll tear down this temple in 3 days. I'll build it up." I think he was talking historically, that was going to happen, and then I think he was talking about his own death and resurrection simultaneously. And so I think right now is like that messiness that's coming.
But he's not in a building. He's not in a place. He's not in the cross that you wear, and he's not in
No, he's in the kingdom right now.
You mean my Jesus piece doesn't mean anything?
What I mean
it's a good representation.
Thanks.
What I mean is
it probably looks dope.
He's not. So why would he care? Why would some people tearing down a building matter?
That's what I'm saying. I think he was talking historically and metaphorically. Like, historically, this is going to happen to initiate, like, the end times.
Well, we had the same thing in Ferguson. Maybe Jesus is over in Ferguson.
But every time
stuff's getting smashed and broken.
Every time a Christian starts, they point at some point in history where someone tore up something that was a temple or something like this, and that was the start of it. Why would that be? Why would he even care? Moses ascended and said not to worship false idols, and that's all a building is. It's a he's not there, so therefore it's a false idol. So if you're worshiping the building, it's a false idol. I feel the same way about the crucifix too.
Same thing about the church too, man. People worship that Sunday, and it ain't Jesus.
Right.
He can be heard about there, but it's not.
Right.
Him.
Right. So
but
those are false idols.
Chuck, my church has a lot of gold. Right. I think it's real.
And gold is a false idol.
No, it's not. So Dude, I love gold.
When he come down,
I thought we were praying to the gold.
Good.
Moses come down and they were worshiping golden bulls and they were worshiping all these different things, and those were false idols, and God struck them down for it.
Yeah.
And all the symbolism. I was explaining this to Drew when he told me you were going to come on. Yeah. I was like, you're going to sit him down next to me.
Yeah.
I have a Baphomet on my chest. I have a pentagram on my arm. I have probably the most anti-religious tattoo on my back you'd ever see in your life. And it's not because...
Do you have the Rock of Ages?
It's because the symbolism. It's me saying, this. You assign this its power. It means nothing. It just looks cool to me.
Yeah.
It means nothing to me.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I think to come back to that question, why I think it's 70 AD is, again, to the point that you're making, is that was the final false idol to be destroyed, was in fact the temple. The Jews were the most religious and racist people group that we know of. Like, so there was 3 levels of that temple. And I don't know about how much y'all know.
Can we say negative stuff about Jews? Because we got a lot of followers now.
Hold on.
Anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
During this time, that should be anti-Semitic. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, right.
Let me get some clarity. Okay?
I mean, if we're gonna do that, then how do we know this other guy wasn't?
This is historic. This is a historic. Let me give the caveat. It's a historical, accurate statement that I'm about to make. Okay?
They don't care. They don't care.
Well, then I've screwed you. I apologize.
We might as well say go fuck China too.
Yeah,
I mean, Jesus Christ, we're getting bombed.
No, this is legit history right here. They had Jews were allowed into the center portion of the temple, right? But before you got there, it literally said Gentiles will be put to death if you try to come.
Oh yeah.
And they would straight up try to murder other ethnicities that would go into that temple. That's a historical proven fact. There are good, great, well-meaning Jews, most certainly, for sure. Okay, there's all the caveats I can give. But the fall of that temple was the fall of religion. That was the point. When he was like, stop worshiping the temple. Instead, and he did say, now worship me. So he tears down the temple, saying he's going to raise up. And then in there he says the Holy Spirit is then sent to those who believe, and your body becomes this temple. And then he opened up Christianity for all ethnicities.
And
Which is
then they
beautiful and
fought,
cool.
and then they fought over where that temple was for.
Oh, they still
then
are,
until-
dude. Is
right,
it on
from
the,
then
is it on the
until
east
now,
side, the west side?
They're still fighting over where it was and who it
Yeah.
belongs to, and
And so, yeah.
killing each other over nonsense.
Money.
Would you rather officiate a
Oh,
wedding or a
that's-
funeral?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's hard. I asked our pastoral staff that. I asked them that. I was like, what would y'all rather do? And for me, I think I'd rather do a wedding. On one hand, I'd rather do a wedding because it's naturally celebratory. But I also, we just had to do a funeral for a gentleman that passed away. And that dude was a faithful, loved the Lord, loved his family well. And there is something really beautiful about celebrating someone's, just faithfulness in life, period. Just a well-meaning individual that tried to bring change and serve people faithfully. His family speaks highly of him, So it goes both ways because, I've had to do funerals for drug addicts at times. They die from overdose. And you're and you want to be there and you want to be helpful for the family. Fortunately, I've not had to do a kid's funeral yet.
But they were still a person. You could still say
Oh,
all them
absolutely.
good things
You can
about
still
them.
say great things
Yeah,
about
yeah.
them, but it's just devastating. I had to do my first funeral I ever did was my mom's funeral.
Oh, wow.
And so that was tough, but also it was liberating because I stood in a room full of people and I said, hey.
But they weren't the drugs. They weren't the drugs. The drugs were not them.
Yeah, they were not. They were not.
They were the side effect of the drugs.
They did contribute.
I have
They
this
did
thing
contribute.
where even if I don't like the person, once they die, they were not the person I didn't like anymore. They were
that's true.
were the person that I knew before I come to not like them.
Yeah.
I don't speak bad about the dead.
Slate's clean at that
You
point.
shouldn't speak
That's
ill
real.
of the dead.
That's real Christian of you there, buddy.
It is
You shouldn't
real
speak ill of the dead.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
real.
I'd say you shouldn't speak ill of the dead because they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
So
Well, the first one I did was my mom, man. So that was tough, but it was also liberating because I had a lot of closure and getting to kind of shut the door on her life.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak ill of her. I did say, hey, I said, in light of idolatry, I actually had a line in that I'll never forget. I said, an idol is anything that promises you life, but only gives you death. And Jesus is the only one that gave you life, that can give life through his death, in light of he's the only one that's come into the system. And I had that line in there. I don't know if it was in my notes or if I just said it. And I said my mama's idol was addiction. There's a difference between using drugs and being addicted.
Yeah,
drugs,
to anything.
Just to be
Yeah,
clear.
yeah.
And so I said that was my mom. I said when she was not on, when she wasn't using, she was incredible. But the moment she started using, that's when she became a different person. And so I want to celebrate who my mom was today, apart from addiction. And there was great closure for me because we had a lot of resentment and frustration, anger, so on and so forth. Yeah. And so, yeah. So it depends, man. That's a hard question. I want to be able to celebrate marriage. That's fun. But also, I think there's more joy in celebrating the faithfulness of someone, whether they're Christian or not, that genuinely sought to bring some value. Praise,
so do you think
praise him for that.
you think you have to be a Christian to do good deeds?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I know atheists that outweigh Christians in good deeds all day long.
Well, that's because they're not crutched on a moral. They don't have a moral crutch.
There's a big part of it.
They are their moral crutch.
Yeah,
They are.
Yeah, I was supposed to have a meeting today with an atheist, outspoken atheist, for lunch today at a local brewery there in Collinsville, and just full of booze today. The pastor
Shout
drinking
out,
whiskey in
shout
the
out,
morning.
Old Harold.
Shout out to Old Harold, yeah. And this woman's a neonatal nurse practitioner with my wife. That she has saved more lives, she's done more good, brought more value, brought more hope to families than a lot of people.
So I think Drew's got this question in his book, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it anyway. So do you go to heaven? When you go to Judgment Day, do you go based on your deeds or based on your profession of love for the deity?
So you get to heaven because of Jesus' work in your place, and so that's the theological answer that I believe. And so I can do all the good things in the world. Again, the only thing that separates me and someone who's agnostic or atheist and whoever it is in the room is that I believe that Jesus did what I cannot do, and that is he lived a life of perfection that I can't live. So that frees me. I don't have to be anybody other than who I am.
Right.
I want to walk out some good morality for sure, because I don't want to be a tool to a bunch of people. But he lived a life I can't live, and then he died the death that I deserve. God told Adam and Eve in the garden, if you rebel against me, you will surely die. And then the very next thing he did was clothe them in nakedness. They were naked and ashamed for the first time when sin comes, and he says, hey, I'm going to send my son to die for you. And then he clothes them. And that's a foreshadowing of a clothing that you get when you profess faith in Jesus.
That brings on a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
But do you believe that you will be judged for your deeds or for
Yeah, same answer. So I believe Jesus is judged for my deeds. That's why he goes to the cross.
So
The word there is.
But what I'm saying
propitiation.
is, so you got this atheist. This atheist has done all these good deeds.
Yeah.
When they get there, do they gain entry because of their deeds? Or are they cast down despite of their deeds?
I would say moralism does not save you. That's no different.
So they're
than what
cast
the
down
Jews said.
despite of their deeds.
Yes, from a Christian perspective, yeah.
And that's where I have a problem with the religion.
But
So
if you say that, though, then you can't get mad at them for worshiping temples because they were in their good deeds. They thought they were doing the right thing, those Jews, you know? They thought they were like, this is how you get to the kingdom right here, by being really good.
But to tell me that God is a egocentric, spoilt, abusive. It's an egocentric, abusive relationship. If I have to love him unconditionally, you have to love me unconditionally, or I will punish you.
Well, that's not in there, though.
That's an abusive relationship. But to tell me that I can't get in unless I have this unfettered love.
Well, it's not even that.
Despite of my deeds.
But it's not about your love. It's a faith that Jesus is the only one that could love him unconditionally. So I'm going to keep saying the same thing, right?
Right.
I think the only reason I get to go into the kingdom of God is because I believe that Jesus has fulfilled all the expectations that he gave his people. Because I can't do that. Like, I can't love Jesus unconditionally.
So,
I'm not always going to be a great dad, right? I
So
had a really terrible Sunday with my kids, you know? I was
Right.
a total prick to my kids, trying to leave the church, mad at them, frustrated, you know? I don't live like a perfect life. We let off with like we all sin. Everybody
But that's
sins.
not what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a person that does good deeds,
Mm-hmm.
despite their good deeds, because they don't have faith, they still go to hell.
In my Christian opinion, yeah.
What
Because
are
they don't believe that Jesus stood in their place and did what they could not do.
But if he stood in their place and did what they could not do, then does that not cover for their faith as well? Maybe they can't have that faith.
Well, if they profess faith in that, yeah. But then at that point, they'd be a Christian.
But
So you have the nurse practitioner who does all these great deeds.
Yeah.
Then you have, let's just go to the worst person I can think of, Hitler.
Shout out Hitler.
Shout out Hitler.
Gosh.
But Hitler says he believes in, he
I mean,
believes
we're
in
getting
Jesus
canceled.
Christ.
yes,
and
yeah,
Jesus Christ
Hitler,
is
Hitler
Savior.
had faith. Hitler was
Mm.
Oh,
Lot
all
of
right.
devout
All right.
Christian.
Come on.
He wasn't a devout Christian.
No, I'm saying.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have committed genocide.
No, but he didn't though. He had other people do it for him without direct orders. So,
Actually, yeah, technically Hitler
He was
gets all
10
the
removed.
credit for the Holocaust, but technically Hitler never ordered the Holocaust. That was
Stalin?
no, was it? It wasn't Goebbels.
Goebbels.
It was no, it wasn't Goebbels. It was
I don't know.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
The
Point
point
you're
is,
making.
he didn't directly say, "Hey, go."
Yeah.
You know, there's no.
He never gave the
There's
order.
no letter that says, "Hey, go kill all these people."
He imprisoned
Now
them.
he could be like, "Hey, maybe I think they're not so good. Maybe you know."
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, "Oh, he means we should do this." Now he didn't consciously stop it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say he's a believer in Jesus Christ. So then you have the nurse practitioner. I mean, it's just.
I
a
mean,
debate.
clearly he
He
ain't.
was cranked out
He
on
also-
meth. He
So-
probably didn't
so-
even know what was happening.
Well, he also designed his whole like portico after Caesar's portico, which is kind of crazy if you look into all that too. Which
So-
is pretty demonic and interesting. to
But
read
what
about.
he's saying is, here's a person who
Yeah.
did profess his faith, and then you have your person you're going to meet with later, and who actually does beautiful, great things.
Incredible things. Yeah.
Right. So, in what you stated earlier is, she won't get to go to this place,
Yeah.
but Hitler could,
Well, I don't think.
and
I
we're
don't
being.
think anybody would really agree that Hitler's a believer.
No, we're just using it as like.
He chose the wrong one. So let's
He chose the wrong-
let's choose a better person, because I know
Well-
for a fact that this person was saved before he was murdered.
Epstein.
Dahmer.
Oh no.
Dahmer was saved.
I don't know. So that's the thing.
so-
How do I know someone's true salvation? You know. I have
Well,
no
I
idea.
mean, if they believe, right,
Right.
that they were
But-
saved.
Yeah, but there's also like your faith and work should work together. You know, like Jesus is pretty clear. Like, those who love me will keep my commands. And then he says things like, they will know you love me by the way you love one another. And no one can look at like.
So
that
sounds like deeds though.
But that's another thing.
There are some deeds there, right?
So,
because like there's an expectation you have for me coming in the room as a Christian pastor. If I came in and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm out with prostitutes and doing lines and doing all that, you'd be like, bro, you might not be following.
Actually,
wait a minute.
I would join that church.
Wait a minute.
That sounds like my jam.
Jesus was out with prostitutes.
Who?
Jesus was out with prostitutes.
He was, but he was not out sleeping with prostitutes. So he was called a glutton and a drunkard by the company he kept, you know? And so I think there's a reality like where your faith and your works have to go together. And you even like as a non-believer, when you look at Christians, there's an expectation that you have for a Christian. There should be a level of reverence. There should not be a level of hypocrisy or judgment that comes, right? Those things you find offensive.
There shouldn't be, but that is whenever I see or hear that someone is a devout Christian, that's what I expect from them is a level of hypocrisy, not a level of reverence.
And part of that came from your own story, right?
It's experience,
And so who was? I don't have to give me but what was that experience that you had? You had you said there's an individual pastor that is the one that led you.
I was forcefully saved. When I had no desire to be saved, no interest, no desire, no nothing. He targeted me. He kept his sermon going until I was the last one up, and then magically it ended. Yeah. I was targeted. I had no desire. I wasn't ready. It was forced upon me.
Pentecostal Assembly of God Church.
And it was a youth pastor at a youth a lock-in up in Holiday Shores that my buddies invited me to, that I went strictly to because there was going to be
chicks.
To be vulgar, pussy.
Right.
So
that's why most kids go to lock-ins.
So I mean, and you
has
can't tell me.
Has anybody gotten laid at a lock-in? Because
No.
I think that's some false advertising.
No, it's
bro.
massively false advertising. but that was my and then what drove me to be an agnostic was I sat 90 days in county jail, and when you sit in county jail you don't have a library. It's not like prison. There isn't a library. You get two things. You get the newspaper, which they take half of because you can't read what everybody else is in there for, or you get the Bible. So I spent 90 days. I spent 90 days playing chess and reading the Bible. Nice. That's what I did, and watching Dragon Ball Z at 4 and 4:30 every day.
That's right. Yeah,
4 and 4:30.
4 episodes is him saying Kamehameha.
Right. And right. And I see you watch it. So when I went in to the county lockup, I would have considered myself a Christian. I didn't go to church, but I believed.
Sure.
And when I left, after reading the book, I no longer believed. I had way more questions than I had answers. Yeah. And I went searching for those answers in other places and other things, and it led me to not believe.
Sure.
So if you would read that book today, Chuck, versus however long ago that was.
Well, I can fill this table with those books. So
how many times have you read it like you did when you're in county? How many times do you read it?
Not at all.
How many? So you've read it one time.
I've gone through it.
You've read it one time with intent because you had nothing else to do.
I read it one time with intent to read the Bible.
Right. To try to grasp and understand as much as possible.
But now I've read most. To say I read all the Old Testament would be just nobody's ever.
You got the Leviticus and skipped that because that's what everybody does.
Nobody reads all the Old Testament, right? It's
all
a
about
really big, really long book, and it gets rather boring at some points. I think I read past Leviticus, but I couldn't tell you. Because it's been a very long time ago.
That's fine.
But I read a lot of the Old Testament too, and I mean that's my favorite version of God. If you want me to have a version that I like, that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
He was a dick.
In some ways,
he was a dick, and he did a lot of screwed up things.
He was effective,
and definitely effective. But I've also read teachings by Zachariah Stitchin. Do you know who Zachariah Stitchin is? The 12th planet.
Anunnaki.
The Nephilim.
Okay.
So we'll use the Bible term for them. The Nephilim.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I've also read Jason Martell's ideas on Planet X. Jason Martell's a follower. Eric Von Daniken.
If you have a single book you'd recommend, I'd read it.
Several archaeological scholars. I've read how they've translated this, and they've translated this, and they've translated this, and they've translated this, and that's part of why I'm an agnostic, because I don't know. Maybe your God maybe you are worshiping what they were worshiping. It's just changed. The translation of which is just changed through people through time, because naturally it would. It's like telephone. If I whispered in his ear and he whispered in Drew's ear and he whispered, by the time it got back to me, it would not be the same, right? It would be different. So maybe, and of course you have to change things to fit this and to fit this and to fit this, and you know what I mean? You got to do some things, so that's why I won't say I don't believe that your God is real. Your God could very well be the same God that the Sumerians wrote about way back when, and which was a physical being that was here on this planet. That could be the same thing. I don't believe in your religion. I don't believe in what your religion teaches. I think it's wrong. I don't even think it's close to what you say God is supposed to be. I don't think it's even close to what he would be if I mean, you can't have it both ways, man. Does he love me so much that he sent his son to die on the cross for my sins? Or is he just going to randomly go, I bet I can give him boils and he still worships me? I mean, you can't have both. You can't have a dick and a savior. You can't have both. So which one do you have? Which one is the real one?
Yeah. Why can't you have both?
Because that's an abusive relationship.
Well, you can't have, you're talking about justice and mercy.
That's an abusive relationship.
And you can't, there's no area in our life where we would want only mercy or only justice. And so you have to have both. You got to have mercy because you need grace, but you also got to have justice because you need to have an actual justice system.
I feel like we need a bell in this motherfucker. That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
Corey's got bangers.
Right.
I don't agree. You're a good pastor.
Yeah.
It's not a debate, but like think about being a dad, right? I can't let my kid do everything he wants to do.
Well, right.
And there are times also where I got to spank that little monster.
Right.
And he's like, well, dang, who are you? You know, like that's an appropriate question.
You see it for ice cream, but now you just what, man?
Yeah. You just spanked me, and also, you know, and so, and we're not him, and so like those are great points, and I think those are the right questions. I actually wish Christians would ask those questions.
But not even
like how do you have both, you know?
But not even punishment. Not even okay. Fine, we'll go with the punishment. But let's go. Job, right? Job. Was it Job?
Oh, let's Satan torture them.
He got sent.
He absolutely tortured the man.
That's a hard. Yeah, that's
on
hard
a
book.
bet. Yeah. With the other guy that's supposed to be the bad guy.
And then whenever, and then Job, to your point, right? I keep saying to your point because you have great points. Job is like for God. And the moment Job questions, God says, well, where were you whenever I stored up the rain? Where were you whenever I birthed the deer? Do you know where this stuff comes from? Do you know how the east wind blows in? Who are you to question me? You know? Yeah. And so, but we're talking about, let's say.
Who are you? I punished you, but like you just said, I punished you. I did all this, and now you're questioning me? Now now you're ungrateful? Yeah, now what's up? What? You know what I mean?
Does God have a 4-finger ring and like 6 chains? Like he sounds gangster as shit.
It's abusive.
Sometimes he is, but then at the same time, then you have him who's like his people run and rebel, and he just woos them back like a bride. You know, like and so
that's what an abuser would do, my friend.
It's both.
It's manipulation.
I don't think he's an abuser, but I think there's a reality where, like, humanity.
In the Old Testament, he was definitely an abuser. In the Old Testament, he was 100% an abuser.
It's interesting is when you get to some stuff like Joshua and things like that, what you begin to read is like humanity rebels against him. Like God is constant. He says, "Here's my law. Here's my command. There's the land of Canaan. You can have all that."
Right.
And then to the point you made earlier about religion. The people of Israel start turning to themselves, and they stop trusting him, and then there's all these wars and all these things that happen.
He didn't in the beginning, though. In the beginning, he had Adam and Eve, and he goes, "This is where you have you have paradise.
Yeah.
Obey me.
Well, there wasn't,
and you can continue to have this paradise. Disobey me, and I will cast you out."
Well, that's tricky because he didn't even say obey. He said just don't disobey, and so like they had everything, and it was perfect. It was perfect for them. And so he's like, don't ask for more. You have everything. And it was like the whole Rockefeller thing. Like, when's enough money? When's enough?
That just goes to human nature.
And you brought Adam and Eve up earlier, which I was hoping you wouldn't bring up because now I'm going to root for the other guy. I'm going to root for the other guy. The other guy gave us free will. He gave us thought. He's given us way more.
Mm-hmm.
In the book itself. In that religion's own book, he provided us free will, freedom of thought, knowledge. Knowledge is power.
He doesn't.
He provided so much.
He doesn't do it apart from deceit, though. because he twists the words of the Lord in that moment. And he says, did God really say you couldn't eat of any of the fruit? Did God really say? And so he does open their eyes, but he only opens their eyes through a deceitful way.
But despite that, he gave us all these things. I mean, there's a reason they call him Lucifer. Lucifer comes from the light bringer. He gave us fire. He gave us, and I'm going to quote it. I shouldn't quote it. I'm going to quote it because it's a good movie, and it's a good line. He nurtured us. I nurtured man. I was there for him in every step of the way. I was devil's advocate. That speech at the end. It's such a powerful speech, and it's
rings true to you.
No, it's accurate. It's 100% accurate according to the religion. It's 100% accurate. He did do all those things.
Okay.
He did.
But if you believe in that, then you have to believe in that Jesus is real and all that stuff.
Oh, right, exactly.
Rooted in deceit, though, I
Yeah.
would still say, like,
Exactly.
back to weddings, like I've done weddings where people have come to our church and just to use me. And
Right.
so, like, I've had people come. I'm a decent communicator publicly, maybe not so much on a podcast, but
No, you're doing great.
But
You're awesome.
But they'll come and they'll use me just for my gift. And my thought on that, do you rather do a wedding or a funeral? I've had to do weddings where I realized like I was just used.
Right.
And so
They can hire a guy
so
like
their
me.
whole marriage then, from my opinion, is rooted in deceit.
Most marriages are.
Deceived me. Yeah, but
Sorry.
from the get-go, like
Sorry.
they deceived me so that they could get something that they wanted.
Right.
And so it is, like, from my understanding of the garden narrative, like, Satan comes in and he does, the way that he opens that door does allow them some different thought, does allow them free will, does allow them some of those things. But that door opened by deceit. And, like, that's a relationship you have to watch out for, because then, like, well, what else is he deceiving you in?
So that's a moral failure on their part, which leads to a question I had.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So there's
Moral failure, that's a good question.
no deceit. There's no deceit in what God did. There's no deceit.
There's no deceit in that, because he said, if you rebel, you will die. That was pretty honest. Hey, because imperfection can't come before.
Only Siths
The
deal in
perfect.
absolutes.
That's right. But that's funny. I've been watching those movies, so that's funny.
Yeah,
But
so-
I mean,
but-
but I could probably find you a couple of things that I
Yeah.
would find deceitful in
Perhaps,
his
yeah.
actions. In his
Yeah.
actions,
I think so. And there's some things we just don't understand,
So-
man. And I can read those with you and be like, man, that is really hard.
what?
And that's where, like, it's okay to go, I'm kind of uncertain. And then, again, the only difference is, like, we can agree to disagree. We can also agree to agree. And,
right.
And then I just have faith that, like, okay, there's probably something I'm missing here. And so, like, let me just take time to study and research and ask questions. And so at the end of the day, like,
it's a bad path to go down because that's what happened to me.
Well, that's my path every day, man. Yeah, because the more I learn, the more I question, and I don't ever want to downplay that.
So what do you consider moral failure, and what steps do you take to guard against it in your own life?
Yeah, for me, moral failure for me is, so we're talking about covenant, and like we talk about marriage, relationship with God is a covenant relationship, and so the number one thing I think about with that would be like adultery against my wife. Like that's the top moral failure for me. If I were to cheat on my wife, that is the exact opposite of everything that God modeled to me in Christ. That at my worst, he still sent his son to die for me and bring me into a relationship with him. Even though I commit, let's say, spiritual adultery against him on the daily, he continues to show up for me. But
the devil has the pineapple upside down in front of his house,
Yeah,
so that's why I like swing through
That's
every
right.
once in a while.
He's
you
got
know.
EDM playing, dude.
Yeah,
It's a party in that
I'm
thing.
just saying.
Yeah, no doubt.
I was cruising by and I saw it flipped over, so I knocked on the door.
Yeah, for me,
He's
that would
definitely
be-
a funner guy.
Right?
For
Yeah,
me,
for
that would be
real.
moral failure for sure. But it's because it goes against like every single aspect of everything that I believe to be true.
Okay.
And so the way genuinely the way I do is like I don't have any conversations with females by myself. I don't text a female by myself. Like they can be a best friend, and I'll text her and her husband, or I'll text her and my wife.
Settle down, Biden.
And so
No, who was that? Pence.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he got in trouble for that. He wouldn't get in an elevator, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't say that, but
dude, there's times where that's very accurate.
I don't
though,
ride
man.
in a car.
Right.
Females.
Things
Right.
can be construed many
Oh,
different ways
bro.
from different
Yeah,
eyes.
and,
Jesus, yeah.
and I'm in a really vulnerable position, honestly. Like we live in a post-Christian society. Like
Right.
I'm not. There people ain't showing up the door at the church knocking, asking who Jesus is. That stopped in the '70s, And so there are genuine people that are out to get me. And, you know, and so that's a real thing. So whether I'm committing something or not, what is it even a look? Well, what I have to think about is what does it look like to the outsider? So if I have to meet with someone, you know, if I met with, I don't know, there's no reason I ever probably meet with your wife. If I had to meet with one of your wives, we'll say, or whatever, we would meet in public, but there would be a text message like, hey, we're meeting at Old Herald at 12:30. We'll be in the middle of that restaurant, you know. And then I'm going to say hi to Justin when I walk in, who's the manager there. And I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's going to know I'm there. And I'm there with that person, unapologetically about it.
Right.
And that's just a rule that my wife and I have. It's not because she's worried about it.
Bro, it's, you know, and it's
you are extra handsome, though, so I can see where
there is
be a
that.
concern.
Yeah.
It's just a real...
Dude, I don't even have my pants on right now.
I know.
I took them off a long time ago.
It's awesome. Thank you.
I had to go put my shirt back on.
I know. That's funny. Yeah, so for me, that's what it is, man. And I try to lead our staff in that regard, too, you know.
Heck yeah. So, have you ever wanted to quit?
Yeah, that's the first time.
Yeah, you said about a year ago.
The first time was last year, man. I was walking through 5 different adulteries in our church. So 5 families that a husband had cheated on a wife, or a wife had cheated on a husband. 2 of them were very close to us, like very, very close friends.
You got some phone numbers?
Do you feel like that's a personal failure on your end?
No, I'm not. No, you're an adult.
Uncalled for.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No. Yeah,
I'm playing, sort of.
That's okay, and it's not too. You can make those jokes. They don't bother me at all.
I want to see the face first.
And that was tough, dude. And so like that, I think those things. Those are the things that I lose sleep over. You know, like you can tell me I suck, or I'm a bad pastor, or we can disagree on things, or my sermon sucked, and I'm gonna go home and sleep like a baby. But when it comes to like people that I've done significant amount of life with, and I just like didn't see that coming. You know, like that was really tough.
Well, and it probably hits home a little harder because they're, you know, you're trying to lead by example, and then these people that you feel that are close to you fail, you know, and so I can see where that hits harder than anything else, because you're like, bro, what am I doing? Like, I'm literally, not only am I leading by example, I'm telling you how I'm leading by example, you know, multiple times a week, and then you're going to go bang the neighbor or whatever, you know.
100%.
So, no, I can
and
see.
You feel deceived. You feel lied to. You feel hurt. You know, it sucks.
So what brought you out of that?
Well, so we had that. Well, then we had Then I had to preach with a retinal migraine, which sucked real bad. Then we had something else catastrophic happen, and then we had a woman have a heart attack in the service and die 3 days later.
Holy.
Yeah, and so it was like a hard couple of months for Corey. And honestly, my wife, man, like I went home, dude, and I'm not going to be anyone here, and I'm not, dude. I went home, and after the we call it Sunday gathering, call it a gathering.
Right.
And we don't call it church, usually we call it a gathering. But
do you paint your face? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, man, like Braveheart when I get up.
Juggalos.
Like Juggalos.
No.
Do you guys, instead of wine, it's Fuego?
Well, so...
Sorry.
No.
This church is
he
getting way
doesn't know-
cool.
He doesn't
No.
know. The things for the Juggalos is serious yelling at me.
Telling us about the weather.
Right. We're talking about hell.
We're
She's
getting,
like, no, it ain't that
We're
hot.
getting Grammy off the stage right now.
And the Lord gave us the great Malenko on this day.
Yeah.
And so...
It's nice to be there.
Sorry, go.
Long story short, my wife helped me through that, man. I literally emotionally broke for the first time in 9 years of all the trash that I've had to walk through with people, and good, but in this regard, trash. And I looked at her with tears, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I can go make double the money with half the stress with the skill sets that I have. You know, we've been talking about preaching on Sunday. That's a small part of what I do. A lot of what I do is leadership development and a lot of other stuff. And so
I can imagine.
My wife led me through it, though.
I can imagine that you deal with overwhelmingly more trash than you do, even if you try to put yourself in good things.
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelmingly more trash than you do good things.
You know, I
because people are trash.
There's a lot of them.
Humans do not deserve to be on this planet. We are a plague.
There's a lot of truth to what you're saying.
We are a virus.
Speak that truth. Preach that, bro. Preach. He's over here preaching. But go on, man. What's up?
No. So how do you? I mean, obviously, you know, the physical fitness, the exertion, for sure. But like when things get bad is when most people turn to God.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because everybody else has let them down. So then you go with this person, right? So, and I have this is going to sound real weird, but it's kind of like that here. People have problems, they come here, right? They're trying to find me to solve a problem.
You might be the second coming. You don't know.
But what I'm saying is, it gets heavy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It gets so heavy trying to lead people so they can, you ask them questions so that way they can find their own answers, right? And that way they can solve their own problems and hopefully not have to come back in that form.
Nobody wants to solve their own problems. That's the other part of it.
That is part of it. That's why my phone rings constantly. Well, until I change my number. So, but the like how is it that how do you get through to where that's when people come to you the most is like with the worst situations, so your friends in the church that kind of deceived you, that kind of betrayed you in your thing, how do you turn the other cheek? How do you help build them back up?
Yeah. Well, he has to. He's a pastor.
Well, I understand to, but I'm asking. I ask how
he doesn't have to.
The process, man, mentally on.
Well, it's tough, man. It's a fight, And so, like, one of the things I'll say is like, I have a good mental game until
there you
I
go.
don't.
Right,
I do until I don't.
I'm with that for sure.
But
I crack all the time.
And so and it takes a man to actually admit that.
Yeah.
To be like, sometimes I'm a little jacked up.
No.
And that's good. That's raw vulnerability and humility that men need. And so, it's a couple things. One is like, I do come back to the book and find answers and go, well, this is no different than what the people of God have always done. So I should not be surprised, and yet I'm human, so I am. This is also what happened to Jesus, like his very own people, his brother. I sent someone a text message this morning who's going through some loss, and I said, hey, Jesus' best friends betrayed him, Judas, Peter denied him, his brother walked out of the house while I was preaching, his mom disowned him, his very own people killed him. Why should I expect anything different to happen to me? This is the world God's called me into, and to lead and to be the face of his face to those people.
So back to Chuck's point, humans are just garbage.
Humans are garbage sometimes.
Right
yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's a fancy word.
I feel like you can like just have Chuck as a guest speaker. Look, you're all fucking trash. Figure your shit out and move on, and let's have a beer.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Yeah, pitter patter.
Yeah, and that's it, man. And at the same time, like, I have no doubt though, like, this is what God called me to,
Right on.
Like, I didn't ask for this. I have no doubt in my mind I could have went and been entrepreneurial and been successful and done the whole deal. I have a lot of raw giftings in that way. But for me, like, part of my story is like, I woke up in my girlfriend's bed, who's now my wife, and God called me to faith. I didn't read a Bible. I didn't go to church. I didn't walk an aisle. I didn't go to church camp or some lock-in. I woke up and knew that Jesus was better. And from that point forward, I've only been losing friends and family for the last 13 years of my life.
There you go. That's how you know you're on the right path.
It's like, okay,
haven't you gained some
I have,
good, great
for
ones?
every mom that I lost, I've gained moms. For every brother, my brother is an atheist who I love, but, doesn't love my life, but he's very, very, very intelligent, very atheist, super smart.
Atheists, they're the same. They're the same.
Left, and so everyone's left, but the Lord. But I have seen through the church, while we talk about people who are hard and difficult, there's also like really incredible, faithful saints in the church, man. And so, like, my mom died of addiction. I have a plethora of moms that love me.
Sure.
My brother's an atheist. I have strong men that are around me. My sister's a little aloof, if I'm honest. I have a lot of women that are like, love me well now. You know what I mean? And so,
sure.
And that was from the church. Back to no one will love you like the church. No one will hurt you like the church.
So take you out of the role that you're in. Are those people still there? So let's say you quit. Yeah. Do you quit? There's a certain amount of ego there. You're lead, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You try to run from that, but yeah.
Yeah. You're the
Yeah, you hope so, man. But
you're the HPIC man, the head preacher in charge.
That's right.
So you know
I
what I'm
need
saying?
that on a shirt.
Right. Yeah. You're welcome.
Unrolled on the back.
I told you. I told you think tank up in here.
Dude, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you check that ego whenever you literally that is your job, is to be the man.
Well, it comes back to that self-care, man. Like,
Yeah.
genuinely. Yeah,
Right.
I do genuinely. Like, I'll believe lies. I just got back from Mexico. I'm all nasty and peely over here in your room.
That's okay.
But while I was in Mexico,
probably
man,
the best thing that fell off in this room.
And so, while I was in Mexico, I was wrestling with some of that because Easter's coming. That's the Super Bowl,
Right.
And so I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, man, I just have all these thoughts of like, you need to be charming, you need to be witty, you need to be intellectual, you need to be, alluring. Like, you need to invite people into these
right.
things. And then I was like, no, like, I don't. Like, no, like, that's about me. That is religion. That makes my sermon is only good if Corey works really, really hard at being good. But the gospel, like, what I believe about Jesus is, like, he's actually all those things, so I don't have to be.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about him. I'll just talk about him.
That's what I was going to say.
And that's what I try to do on Easter.
Shouldn't matter how you are. Because,
It shouldn't. That's
because
right.
they're not coming to see.
Yeah.
You.
But
That's right.
Because you can't create a cult of personality within yourself, right?
That's right. And that's the
If they're
difference.
coming to see you, then they're not worshiping.
Right. And so
You're-
the hope
you're
is
doing it wrong.
if Corey left, they go, but Jesus is still here.
Right.
And that's the hope.
Right,
And
right. So when you're on that thought process of quitting, right?
Yeah.
How free were your thoughts? How free was your soul at that moment, just to kind of get rid of that?
Yeah, that's it, man. It wasn't.
There you go.
It wasn't free,
There
man.
you go.
I was like, this is what he's calling me to.
Right.
And it's just like when you know, people are like, how do you know? And it's like, it's all you can think about. It's what
Right.
you eat, you drink, you daydream. Like, you're like, this is what I've been called to do.
Right on.
And there's no way you can shake that,
You know,
And
it's,
so,
it's pretty admirable that anybody has that kind of calling, like where it's every day you think about that. You think about
Yeah.
scrubbing cars all day? No. Okay. You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
thinking about that bike for the last 2 days.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah.
it's exhausting to consistently every day
Mhm.
wake up and solve people's problems, and
Mhm.
also continue to do good works and deeds.
Yeah.
And so,
It is.
sometimes like I'm not a good person all the time, but I try to wake up and do that every day.
same.
Sometimes you just want to do a little hood shit, man.
You do.
Yeah,
You
you
are.
do.
Right.
And I was raised pretty hood, bro.
Yeah, right.
So it's in me.
Runs down.
Right. No.
I remind people, like, there's a fine line between being a gangster and being a pastor, and it's
Yeah.
like, you gotta hope Jesus is in that equation, otherwise it's gonna go the other way. So it goes the other way quick, dude.
I like it. I like your lighthouse tattoo, man. I think that is perfect for you.
Thanks.
It stands through the storm and tries to guide you in.
Yeah.
I think the lighthouse. I'd love to have one of those, man, but I just don't know if I really guide that many people in. I'm still trying to get my own lighthouse to light up. So when I see people with that, and it's normally bullshit.
Mhm.
But I see that on you, and that's
man.
I think that's a home run. So
Yeah,
I think
thank you.
that's spot on. Like, you need like a bigger one on your chest or something. Do your
Like
sermon like what Chuck was wearing. Just
Some best. A best.
a
A
vest.
bowler hat.
Yeah, vest, bowler hat, and a big old lighthouse tattoo. Open
Yeah, well, I
vest.
appreciate the time, hopefully.
Yeah,
And went
Yeah,
as
'cause
well as
you
you'd
got to
hope.
get out of here pretty quick, don't
yeah,
you?
yeah. Well, it's 11:30.
About 11:30, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So we got 3 minutes. You got another question? That can be a 3-minute question. Where's our fuck, marry, kill?
We can't do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. He wouldn't put the one in I wanted, so
So we always.
I was
do-
gonna go savage with it.
We're gonna-
He was like, yeah, I can't do that.
We're gonna say.
Sorry.
Kiss. If you weren't married, kiss, marry, kill. Characters from the Bible.
oh my gosh, I don't know, dude. They're all messy.
Lilith, Goliath, and Delilah.
Which one would you do?
Yeah. Kiss, marry.
Kiss, marry, kill.
That's so
do
fun.
we have any photos of any of them? You
I think
don't.
I'd want to.
Are we just going off
kill
the stuff?
Goliath?
Okay.
Not because like David did, but because he's like the biggest dude.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna take out somebody, let's take
Would
out
you
the
really
greatest.
take
Man,
Choke him?
prison
I
rules.
would.
Straight
Yeah.
prison rules, bro.
Prison rules.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
I like it.
Who was it? Goliath. I want to kill because that
Uh,
sounds good, right?
Lilith.
I don't even know who Lilith is.
You don't know who Lilith is?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
Okay. Well, Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 27.
Teach
and
me here.
Isaiah 34:14.
Yeah.
Lilith
John
was
3:16.
Lilith was made from the dirt, like
Yeah.
Adam, not from his body.
Yeah. Okay.
She was supposedly who all the demons
Ooh.
spawn her from.
She's a
Oh,
dirty
really?
girl.
I don't know anything
Dirty
about that.
girl.
Yeah.
Wow,
Let's
I'm
kiss
talking-
her.
I'm kissing on that one.
And then Delilah.
Delilah. We're gonna marry Delilah.
Yeah, I mean she needs to be converted from that.
That's
I
the
know
life
what it's like in New
That's
York
the one-
City.
I don't know who
need to marry
Delilah is.
Delilah.
Samson and Delilah.
Oh, okay,
She was
okay,
a courtesan / prostitute, and
Okay.
she betrayed.
Might as well
Samson.
marry her.
That's a toss up.
Yeah. 3 different times
is
she
a dirty
betrayed
girl.
Yeah.
You'd think he would have got out of there, but
Yeah.
she must have been worth it. So.
Lilith is a dirty girl. and
Kept coming
Delilah-
back.
and
Sometimes
Delilah's
sometimes a hoo-ha brings you right back, bro. You know.
He was a messy dude, bro.
Right.
Yeah. he
I
was
like
messy.
it.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I mean, nobody's living past 40 then anyway, so
No.
I mean, you might as well catch it all.
Kicks, bro. Get him while you're young.
Right, right, yeah. Pokemon, I get all them STDs all the time.
So, cool.
I'd say, I'd fight Goliath to see if I could take him.
Well, I mean,
I think you got it.
it's a
That's
kill.
the given.
Yeah,
That's
you get to
prison
kill her.
rules. That's the given.
Yeah.
You know, Lilith, you know, that's just a kiss and go. And married Delilah because you tried to turn the hoe into the housewife.
No, unless you can't turn a hoe into a housewife.
Street rules say.
About that, I think.
Street rules say you cannot turn the hoe into the housewife,
I mean,
and it's been proven time and time, well documented actually.
right. Well documented.
It's called divorce court.
Right.
You can say that's gospel right there.
Right. You're welcome.
Is
Yeah.
that the book of the 3-6 Mafia?
Yeah.
from the
Exactly.
From the book of Snoop Dogg.
Right. Book of Ludacris says, "I see the same hoes in different area codes."
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right. It's all gospel.
Corey,
It's all gospel.
you've been fantastic. If you're freshening up your resume, you can put you were the first religious person on for sure.
Yeah, I was trying to think. What's his name? Help me out, boys. Sorry if it's right here at the end of the show. But 75 Hard. I can't think of his name.
Oh yeah. Charlie.
He's got a pastor on his show.
Charlie. Right. Oh, 75 Hard.
75 Hard. He has
Oh yeah. Oh, you're talking about Andy, and he
Yes,
had Vaughn.
Andy.
Yeah, he had Vaughn
Yeah.
on there. Yeah, it's, Vaughn the Impaler.
Yeah, he
So-
has a pastor on his show that's on there.
Yeah,
regularly.
I don't even know if he's still there. I
Oh,
quit
okay.
listening. I did the same thing you did, man. I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, man, and I had to take a break, and I'm still
Yeah.
on that break right now. I
Yeah.
don't even listen to my own because I was already here. So
Yeah.
you know,
It's good to find your voice, man.
yeah. No,
Find your thoughts and stuff.
you know, that's the weird part, man. When I'm left to my own thoughts, that's it's almost I almost need that guidance all the time, you know, because when I'm left to my own thoughts, I just want to do hood shit all the time. So
Yeah,
you
we
know,
say a bored man's a dangerous man.
bored, yeah, man, idle hands for sure, right? Yeah, no, that's a real thing. So yeah, no, it's like sometimes I gotta jump on a podcast just to distract myself from
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
doing
It's super
different
fun.
things. Dude, you've been
Appreciate
a
the
fantastic,
conversation.
yeah, been a fantastic conversationalist, man. I really appreciate you
And
coming on.
I don't want to speak for anybody, but if you know, we didn't get to all our questions. If you ever want to come back and chat again, we'd
Yeah,
love
sure.
to
Yeah.
have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we gotta bring old Jeremy in too, man. If we're gonna be an enlightened week of, you know, and that's what it is. Having you here is enlightened, man. It's like when a guest makes me think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You know, that's a in my book for me being selfish, man. That is the best guest. You know, for
You've
sure.
provided better answers than most people I've even lightly touched on with.
Yeah, dude.
discussion with.
Like I want
Well,
to
I
get a.
appreciate you standing your
for sure.
ground. That's the
for
best
sure.
conversation whenever you can just disagree and be like, it's okay.
I think my favorite comment.
Well, as long as you understand that you so my whole thing with the conversation is as long as you can walk into an understanding that you may say something I find offensive, but you're not trying to offend me.
Right.
I may say something that you might find offensive,
Yeah.
but you're not trying to offend me. We're having a conversation.
Right now.
And that's part of having a conversation.
Imagine how much better the world would be
Right.
if that
Dude,
could happen
if
anywhere.
Facebook didn't
Right.
exist.
Yeah,
I love talking about religion. You'll never change my mind on it.
Right.
But I love talking about religion because I've read so much of it.
Yeah.
I collect old Bibles because I like old Bibles. They're neat and I find that some of them don't have the same stories that some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I have found things missing in some, and things in others, and that's just not even reading. That's just skimming.
Mm-hmm.
And I like talking about religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a focal point of this society.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Drew, for Make-A-Wish over here.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'm bringing it true. I know.
Yeah.
You know, I try to.
It's a focal point of society, and it's
Yeah.
a hot topic, and hot topics are fun to have conversations about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get it.
Yeah, you're fantastic.
And I
too.
don't think that you could have had a better conversation with anybody than this guy about it. Like I told you,
No.
I think he's a
Well,
wonderful
no,
dude.
but like I said, better answers than
and
most people I've
I think my
conversed with.
favorite line was Corey. You go. I wish more Christians would ask questions like this, and I thought that was a beautiful statement because you know it's like I want you to question things so you can learn more and so you can
Yeah.
you can fall more in love with God.
Yeah.
You know, right there.
Yeah, we talk about it, man. Like you can disagree and still have dinner.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
like, people are just scared.
Yeah.
And it's like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
let's have a meal.
Can I end or maybe
Yeah.
just one last thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I talked to Chuck about it the other day, and it was a question, or it was a meme I saw, somebody made, and I don't know, it might have been from a book or something, and it said, it's the end of creation or whatever, it's the end of times, and God's on trial, and the lawyer says, how could you have let all this happen? And God says, how could you let all this happen? What does that mean to you?
I don't know, man. That's a pretty deep thought for a last thought, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that a lot of times we do blame God, and we don't have the wherewithal or the strength to look in the mirror.
So I wiped out on my one wheel a couple Sundays ago,
Nice,
and man, I was cussing God all the way down. I was like, "You son of a!" And then just ate.
It's not. And my response to Drew because he sent that to me, my response was, I mean, I'm gonna have a hard time, even if I am judged on my deeds. When I get there to be judged, I'm gonna have a question, and I'm not gonna make it because I've got questions.
Yeah,
I've got questions, and if you're too good to answer my questions, then I guess I'll go party with the other guy or whatever the hell's going on down there in hell. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's really a party. Like, I mean, I grew up Catholic, so they made it sounded really
the only thing we know about it was told by the other side, and they're not going to tell you it's a party, now are they?
I mean, so who writes the stories? The victor writes the stories, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you.
Corey, do you wanna plug anything? You got a website for the church? You got
I mean, yeah, I guess we do. We most of it's on socials, but it's just We Are Heights.
We Are Heights.
Yeah.
HEITE. Jesus.
HEITH.
I was getting there.
And you have and all the services are streamed live.
Yeah,
right?
everything's streamed. Everything's
Did you
online.
see HEITE?
No, I stumbled on GH.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it out.
Yeah, it's
so.
We Are Heights.
Little whiskey in my coffee this morning. Shout out Rachel and Co. Very cool, man. Come back anytime, man. I loved it. Hopefully you did too.
Super fun, man.
Right on. Like, subscribe, share. Give us your thoughts. Say an amen on the comments. I don't know. Say an amen. We'll pick a winner. I got shirts, man. Still. So
I got lots of shirts.
Yeah.
I think we got a beanie or two too.
You comment amen on this bad boy on the YouTube, and then we'll pick a winner. Or hell, we might just give everybody a shirt. That's how many shirts we got. Yeah. Say amen.
Height shirts from
I'll
Corey.
throw in a shirt. Hey, I got some swag. We'll
Yeah.
throw in some swag.
Yeah, right on.
I'll give it to the doc.
Yeah. All right. So comment amen on this on the YouTube channel, and then you will. We're gonna toss some shirts out to you. So we'll send you a message. Get your address.
Cool.
So, all right. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. And yeah.
Have a wonderful
See ya. Bye.
life.
Have a blessed day.
The cigar was delicious.
Thanks, man.